Remember, my friend, it is not what happens that counts. It's how you react. Your mental attitude determines what makes it either a stepping stone or a stumbling block. Friends and grasshoppers, this is the Formless Podcast, episode number 131. Tyler the Superhuman, he's out today. You got me, Dustin, and a special guest today is going to be Sensei Cole Stanley. Sorry, lost my spot there. He is a judo instructor with 25 years of experience in various wrestling, judo, teaching. How you doing today, sir?
Great, man. I couldn't be better. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah. Now, you're also the host of the podcast, the Well Rounded Grappler. How long have you been doing that?
I'd say maybe like 2.5 years, maybe something like that.
Okay.
On and off.
And I've listened to a few episodes, and you got quite a group on there. Various different judo practitioners, sambo, all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah, right. It kind of constitutes the well-rounded aspect. You know, I try to get some people from different grappling backgrounds on there, from, you know, the everyday person all the way up to, you know, Olympic medalists in wrestling and judo that I've had on there. So it's been really cool. Right on.
And what inspired that to take place?
The original reason was that I wanted to give my wrestling team some motivation and inspiration and stuff that can help them focus and, you know, like see what the next steps can be, you know, listen to people that are, you know, not me. And
give them a different perspective.
And to be honest, like they really didn't. They really weren't into it. Like, you know, like I had a couple kids that maybe listened to parts of a couple episodes, but they really had no interest, honestly. You know, the attention span sometimes these days, the kids like the short form videos, and these interviews are an hour, you know, an hour and a half, and they just weren't very interested. So that really was the original reason, honestly. And then it went from there to I enjoyed doing it. And then, you know, I started to get an adult audience, and, you know, it's just kind of gone from there. It's not very big, but it's been fun. So.
Yeah. The fun part of it is a big portion. You know, you get to talk to all sorts of people, have interesting conversations. And this day and age, with the attention span being what it is, and everybody being busy, it's hard to like just sit down and have a conversation with somebody. That's one of the more fun aspects of doing this, I think, is just sitting down and planning out an hour chunk of time or half hour, whatever the case may be, and just sitting down and really picking somebody's brain. It's really quite cool. So your wrestling team that you were coaching, is that a high school team, college?
It was high school. Yeah, the last 3 years that I coached wrestling, which I ended the season of 24 going into 25. So I've had 2 seasons to where I haven't been coaching wrestling anymore, but I've been coaching judo.
Oh, hang on. I just lost all audio. You there? Okay, something happened there. What happened? Crud. It just cut out. Try me again, Cole. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go. We're back. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. It just cut out mid-sentence. So you were the wrestling coach up until the 24-25 season?
23, 24.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is 2 seasons since I haven't coached wrestling, and I've been coaching judo only. But as a head coach at a school here in North Carolina, outside of Charlotte, for 3 years, and then I was a head coach in Illinois for 3 years as well, and then a volunteer coach, and sprinkle in a little bit of assistant coach here and there for 10. But most of my career was being a volunteer coach.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it led. But I'm not in the school system anymore at all. Like, I don't teach and I don't coach anymore. But there's a long story behind that. But I like what I'm doing right now. So
what are you doing now? Just the judo?
No. I as far as career wise, I do construction estimating. I read blueprints at home. I work from home, and then read blueprints, measure them, and just send in material lists. It's really easy. And outside of education, I was in construction when I was younger, mostly framing houses, custom houses. So I had a general idea, but I got to the point in my education career to where I needed to step away, and I taught at the college level part-time for a semester, a summer semester and was it fall? I think it was fall. Yeah, fall semester. And then I just, this job kind of came open, and now I've been there for, coming up on 2 years, a year and a half, something like that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. And so with the judo, what's your history with judo?
Well, I started when I was 17. I got into it because I had always enjoyed wrestling with my friends and watching professional wrestling when I was a kid. And we had, backyard matches on the trampoline and whatnot. And then we had a kid that moved to town. His name was Adam. This is a super small town in the early 90s. And he said that he had wrestled before. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what you mean. And, like anytime we would do any sort of wrestling, I mean, he just like kicked the crap out of us, and yeah, because we didn't know what we were doing, and he did. And, but I always kind of liked it. I always liked, grabbing onto people and taking them down and doing physical type stuff like that, wrestling with my friends. And, when I got up to high school age, I wanted to wrestle, but our high school didn't have a team. So that wasn't an option, but I was still interested. And the same friend, Adam, was the one that told me about judo originally, because his cousins were into it pretty big. One of the cousins was a black belt. The other one, I think, was a brown belt. And then he was a Division I All-American in wrestling.
Wow.
So, he had both. Yeah. So he was tough. His name was Tommy Lakier, was the name of his cousin that was, doing judo. And I don't really remember the conversation. I doubt that I knew what judo was at the time. I just know that I like to grapple and I like to wrestle, and that was something that was available. So I started at 17, and then 25 years later, here we are, and I'm still doing it. And I'm on the mat more now, probably, than ever, honestly. I mean, I'm teaching 2 days at my own club, 2 days at the jiu-jitsu club, and then sprinkle in some times where I train jiu-jitsu, or I train judo, or I do a little bit of a traveling schedule. Not so much right now, because I've been trying to open up my dojo, and sprinkle in that too. I mean, I'm on the mat, 4, 5, 6 days a week.
Right on.
So it's fun. So, yeah, I'm happy to be able to do that.
Very cool. Very cool. How long have you been teaching now, judo?
This is, well, I started the judo program at the jiu-jitsu school that I teach for outside of Charlotte. It's called 4M Martial Arts and Fitness. So one of my wrestlers, his mom owns the gym, and he was on the wrestling team, and just whatever reason, like jiu-jitsu got brought up, and he said that he had a background in jiu-jitsu, and so that's cool. So we connected and we were talking, and I had done a little bit of jiu-jitsu before that, not much, but judo and jiu-jitsu have a lot of similarities. Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and then I'm like, well, it's like that's not too far away from my house, the gym, and I was doing some jiu-jitsu before, and I just want to train. So after the first season that he was on the team, I started to train jiu-jitsu at that club as a white belt. I was a black belt in judo already, but
Oh, okay.
definitely a white belt in jiu-jitsu for a long time. But as things progressed, and I met, the other owner, his name is Davis. So there's two owners, John's mom and Davis are kind of co-owners for the gym, and it's a big gym. It's a nice gym. They have jiu-jitsu, MMA, kickboxing, boxing, CrossFit. I mean, it's a big place. I think Davis told me it was 14,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's a big place. Yeah, and I don't even know how much mat space they have. Probably like maybe 4,000 square feet of mat space. 5,000, 6,000,
Nice.
something like that. It's big. It's huge. So I got to talking with Davis about judo and how I was involved in judo, and he knew I was the wrestling coach, and they used to have a judo program years ago, and that dissolved for whatever reason. And it just got brought up, that I would like to teach judo. And again, I don't remember the conversation exactly, but we were both kind of on board with starting a judo program. But I was involved in wrestling, and I'm like, if I do judo, it's going to be really hard for me to do it during the wrestling season. So for a while we were just talking, and John was still wrestling. And then when it came time to where I didn't want to be a high school coach anymore, I had talked to Davis, and he said, yeah, I'd like to get a judo program going again. February of 2024, I started the judo program at 4M. And at first, I think with any new program that comes to a gym or a new school that opens in the area, whatever it is, you had a pretty big interest at first. There were classes at the beginning that I had 25, 30 people that came to one of the classes. So it was awesome. And so a lot of interest.
Yeah.
But, as people started to find out about judo and how it differs from jiu-jitsu, and how learning to break fall and stuff like that can be rough at first. The numbers dwindled, and as time progressed, depends on the day. Fridays have been anywhere between 2 people and 15, and Saturdays have been a little bit bigger, usually between 8, 10, 12, upwards of 16 people that have been coming in regularly after that initial wave of people that kind of came through. And the thing is too, it's and again, like people don't think the same way as I do, I guess, but the gym probably has, I don't know, 200 or 300 members, and the majority of them, probably 2/3 of them do jujitsu, you know. And while I was training jujitsu, I would invite them to come to class. And, you know, whenever I would come and train in jujitsu as a white belt and then a blue belt later on, you know, we would practice some stand-ups, some takedowns and stuff. Some people, for some reason, just they don't want to go with me, and it trust me, it's not because I'm rough with them, because it's actually the opposite. You know, like I want to be kind of easy on them because I want them to come to judo. You know, like I don't want to like just cream people. It doesn't make any sense. You
Yeah.
know, and they would say, I need to work on my takedowns. And I'm like, well, we have a judo program. Why don't you start coming to judo? And again, it's, hold on. I apologize about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, it just happens sometimes. And, you know, I would try to get these individuals from jiu-jitsu to come into judo, you know, and do judo. And some of them would come, and sometimes they would just come one class and leave. And, you know, but a small handful of them stuck around. And I have had a couple students from the beginning, only a couple, but, you know, one of my yellow belts, who's a 17-year-old girl, right? Like she stuck it out,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then you look at people like that and say, okay, you got a 17-year-old girl that never did any wrestling, that never did any jujitsu. You got a 17-year-old girl that, you know, never did any judo, never did any wrestling, is a white belt in jiu-jitsu, and she stuck it out and she loves it. But you get like some of these guys that wrestle in high school and they come to judo and they say it's, you know, it's too rough or it's too hard, you know. So it's I mean, it is what it is. I'm happy for the people that come, but you know, I obviously would like to see the numbers come up, you know, because especially with some of these competitors that, I mean, they tell me stories. They're like, I go to jiu-jitsu competitions and I get taken down all the time. I'm like, I mean, you're never going to get any better unless you start practicing, dude. And like the easiest way is to start coming to judo, you know, or practice a lot of stand-up whenever you do live or rolling in jiu-jitsu, you know, and these are the same people that want to start on their knees or start sitting down at the beginning of all the rounds, you know. So it's like, you know, you can complain about it all you want, but unless you actually put the work in, like nothing is ever going to change.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I'm happy for the people that come. I'm really enjoying the program. And a month ago, I opened the doors to my own judo program. I had a 1,200 square foot building built in my front yard, an all steel building with a concrete foundation. And I've been running that for the last month. And, you know, I got 8 members. So, you know, we're small. We just started, but it's going really good. And I'm very happy I did it this way, to where I kept working and I built the building on my property, and I'm doing it that way. It's a lot cheaper and it's obviously a lot closer to home, and it doesn't come with some of the stipulations of renting out a facility somewhere. Because I looked into that and it's expensive.
Oh yeah.
And then you got a lot of overhead and you have a lot of extra costs that come into, you know, renting a building somewhere. I mean, especially if it's not a brand new space, you know, if it's 10, 20 years old and the heating system and everything is 20 years old, stuff starts to break down. So I decided to go this way, and it's a lot better. I'm really happy that I did.
Right on. Yeah, not very many people can say they have a gym basically in their backyard. That's awesome. That is awesome. And
Yeah.
having, there's benefits obviously financially to having a bigger class, but I find that like the smaller, more intimate classes, you get a better lesson, but also like you can afford to kind of go off on tangents, for lack of a better word. You can explore topics more easily.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of go into depth on stuff, and that's where you find, at least for my perspective, that's where you find the fun stuff. Like, oh, this is like how we're gonna get down to business today.
Yeah,
What
of course.
what on a teaching aspect, what are some of the more fun, what are your favorite lessons to give? Like what techniques or concepts or philosophies do you like to teach?
I mean, I try to go off of kind of what the group needs. I come up with lessons and groups of throws and tactics and techniques. And once class starts, I kind of just see how things go. Sometimes I have to completely change the game plan, right? Like
Yeah.
I might say, hey, I want to do this technique, and it's random who comes to class, because sometimes it'll be two or three brand new people and maybe one other person, that's been with me for a couple months or whatever. So I got to completely change what we're doing, which is totally fine. I'm so used to that from being a teacher in the school system. Like I have a plan B, and I can teach and expand on a whole bunch of stuff at any time. But so what I've been doing as far as teaching judo, I've really been teaching the art as opposed to teaching the competitive sport, because the gym, like most jujitsu gyms, has an older population that does jujitsu, 30, 40, 50-year-old men and women, of course, that are doing jujitsu. And I want them to be able to enjoy judo as well, and not have to view it as something that's super competitive, and something that they're going to get thrown 500 times at practice and things like that. So I've just been teaching to the art. The current rule system of judo, you can't grab the legs, you can't do single leg, double leg, ankle pick, anything like that. But we practice them in my class, because that is what judo was originally. It included leg attacks, plus my experience in the wrestling aspect. I have stuff to add to the techniques to make them a little bit more effective. And for the most part, I just kind of have fun with it. I don't push them real hard. We don't do hard conditioning sessions. We don't do a ton of live, honestly. I mean, every once in a while we do. It just kind of depends on the group and how things are going, and who I have there that day and things like that. But for the most part, we just I teach us some cool techniques. We use the crash pad a lot. And I'm just trying to make everyone enjoy it, but not get overwhelmed or push too hard,
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, those are some of the, in my opinion, those are some of the more fun classes to do. You're just trying to learn and get better. And there's no worry about like, oh, I beat him or they beat me, or, let's just learn the technique.
Right.
Let's do the thing, drill. That I find that makes me a better participant than if I'm worried about like, oh, this guy's going to really throw me, or how's my break fall doing? If I'm not up to the game there. But Right on, man. That's cool. Was that part of the game plan from the get-go, is building your own place at home, or did that kind of just fall into your lap?
It's just something I kind of decided just over time because I like I like teaching in general,
Mhm.
whether it's in the school system or at the college level or wrestling or martial arts or just whatever. I just enjoy the profession and the act of teaching people. It's kind of just what I'm meant to do, and I really enjoy it. So, I finished the school system and stepped away from teaching and started teaching judo. And then I started doing the travel schedule a little bit. I go around to judo and mostly jujitsu schools and teach takedowns and throws and whatnot. A lot of times it's judo for jujitsu or wrestling for jujitsu. And I started doing that and make a little bit of money from that. And I just I like teaching and I wanted to figure out a way that I can get on the mat and teach judo more often. So I just started doing research and did a lot of thinking. Do I just want to stay at 4M? Do I want to focus more time on the travel schedule? Or do I want to have my own space? And, for a long time, like as I was growing up, I had a lot of friends that either have their own businesses still or have always wanted to have their own business and work for themselves. And that honestly, like, never interested me at all because I know how financially struggling it can be, and I've seen people that have lost businesses and I've also seen people that have struggled and others that have done well for themselves or people that have tried to go on their own and then they end up coming back and working for somebody and they're broke. So I wanted to teach more, but I didn't want to make a gigantic financial investment, but I looked around and looked at some commercial spaces and I'm just like, man, I just don't want to spend that kind of money, like I want to teach, but I also don't want to pay to do it. Like I don't want to be losing $1,000 a month if I do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you got to do it the right way. You got to
because
be smart about it.
yeah, I want to save money and stuff for the future. And put some money away for my daughter and whatnot. And not struggle as a family to pay the bills. So I looked into what it would cost to have a building built on my property, and man, it's way cheaper. I can tell you that, way cheaper. And that's kind of the route that I went, and I'm happy that I did. And I'm even thinking about the future now. And if I keep doing this and it continues to be a success, I might want to build another place, but maybe bigger, I mean, not like, I'm not saying like, $1 million, but, a couple thousand square feet, maybe, something like that. But we'll see,
Yeah.
but I like the route that things are going right now. And I enjoy having the dojo at my house. And like I said, it's a lot cheaper to do it this way. And I just felt that it was better for me and better for my family and whatnot. And I'm still working full time. I would maybe at some point, if this does end up making enough money to where I can sustain ourselves, I might contemplate doing it full time. But I'm not going to do that until like I feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
Like I need the student base to come up and things like that. Like you know, you could think of it. I mean, I'm doing it the smart way, I guess, but I guess it's the more cautious way. I don't want to end up in these situations to where we're losing money, because like I don't, I want to be able to pay our bills and not have to worry about, the electricity getting shut off or we not, not having food in the fridge and stuff. So it's like I'll still work full time and do this on the side, but part of me does want to maybe eventually leave my job and do this. And then, if anything, I could always go back in education if I wanted to. Um, I have a special ed teaching endorsement, so I can literally go back and get a job at any school in the state, literally anytime I want with that background. So I mean, I mean, it has nothing to do with like skill. It's just special ed teachers are in gigantic demand everywhere, and I mean, there's
Absolutely.
there's there's spots that never get filled. There'll be spots that'll be open at a school for the entire school year, and it never gets filled. People just, that's just not a field somebody wants to get into. And it's even worse right now because there's not a lot of people that even want to get into education, period. Um, Here in North Carolina, a lot of states are starting to do this too, is they're hiring people to teach in the classroom that don't even have a teaching degree. They have a bachelor's degree in something else.
Really?
And because there's such a, yeah, because there's just such a nationwide shortage on teachers that they have to start making these compromises. But, that's a whole nother discussion,
Yeah.
why there's a teacher, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, times have changed, and attitudes about things have changed. So, yeah. Uh, so your your martial arts history is mainly judo and wrestling. Has there been any other stuff in along the lines that or along the path there that you've taken?
With jiu-jitsu as well. I'm a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I do train jiu-jitsu, just not a lot.
Yeah.
The place that I do train jiu-jitsu, me and the owner, have a little bit of an agreement because, like I help out, and he likes to have a black belt around, and he knows that I can't, like I don't I don't have the capability to train all the time. So if I can make it in a couple times a month, like that's a good thing for me. Um, because number one, I don't want to be gone all the time and be away from my family. That's another reason why I decided to, build the dojo on the property, because it's right out the front door,
Yeah.
and my wife and my daughter can come out there anytime they want. And like my daughter can come on the mat like anytime she wants. It's our place. So,
That's
and my
awesome.
wife is like, oh, I don't want her to interrupt your class. And I'm like, she's been she's been coming with me. So when I started teaching judo at 4M 2 years ago, one of my stipulations with the owners is I'm going to have Olivia with me. And because my wife works on the weekends. So the only way I can do this is if you are understanding with me having my daughter with me. And they're like, yeah, of course you can have her with you. So Olivia has been with me for the majority of these judo classes for the last 2 years. I mean, she's been on the mats before she could walk, you
Oh,
know,
cool.
and I smile and kind of think back that there was times to where she would cry the entire practice, and I'd have to hold her the entire practice. And I look back and I'm just like, wow, it's crazy that was like that at that time. And now she's so used to it, and everybody's used to her. So, having it at my own place in my front yard, Olivia can come on the mats anytime she wants. I'm so used to her being there and stuff. And like I have a second sense for kind of where she is. And, when we're doing stuff, I'm always making sure that, she's in a safe area or whatever,
Yeah.
and always keeping an eye on her. and it's awesome, but that's kind of what I'm doing. I kind of lost track of thought of what your question
No, that's
was,
okay. That's okay. No,
I go into rants.
it's awesome that family affair, that bringing the family
Oh, yeah.
along with you is really cool. I've been dragging my entire family down to our school for my youngest is 11 years old, and I think he was about 3 months old when we started the whole family coming down. And it's just been
Yeah.
that's all he knows. And some days he loves it, and other days he's a little burnt out.
Yeah.
This morning was tough for him, but
Yeah.
it's a good thing, and I don't think you're going to do your daughter any disservice by having her down there on the mats with you. It's
Yeah.
it's good. It's good for kids. It's good to develop skills like that, and it can only help them build that coordination and that physicality, and it's awesome stuff. It's really cool to see.
Well, she doesn't participate in practice,
Well,
but
no,
she's
no. I mean,
there.
she's two, but she's getting a feel for it, and she's seeing that and
Yeah.
experiencing it in ways that you don't even see yet. But it'll come. It'll come.
I think it would do. I'm hoping that she decides that she wants to do something grappling related, judo, jujitsu, wrestling. But now I remember your question. Now, what are some things besides judo and wrestling? So, like I said, I'm a blue belt in jujitsu. There's been times to where I've been on the mat, 3, 4, 5 times a week for jujitsu. Like when I was still a teacher, I would, do that during the summers when I had a little bit more free time. I would train a lot of jujitsu. And like I said, right now I'm doing, a couple times a month, like in November and December, getting prepped to open the dojo. Basically, like every lunch break, almost every weekend, and almost every night, I was out doing something for the dojo, whether it's building or insulating or getting equipment or advertising or making flyers or just presenting and just doing anything I can to try to promote it and get it going. Because, one of the things that I heard a lot from both people telling me personally and then things that I've read and watched videos about that, you want to get the word out before you open so that when you do open, people have already kind of heard of you and are ready to start like day one. And that's what I did. I had people a couple months in advance that were interested, and, a couple of them stuck around, and, they're students now. Uh, some of the other stuff that I've done, it's super limited, but one of my judo instructors was big into sambo, but sambo was very similar to judo. It has a couple different rules and the leg attacks and things like that, but it's grappling. It's super similar to judo. I've done aikido a very, very, very limited amount. And I also used to do a little bit of MMA, but more to just cross train to help me with judo.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically would just go for like the no gi grappling for the most part, no gi submission wrestling
Okay.
type of aspect. I did a little bit of the striking, but I had no interest in being an MMA fighter. I just did it to help me with judo and wrestling.
Yeah.
So.
Right on. Right on. With the judo background, does that translate real well to jiu-jitsu? And do you find that it makes
Oh
things
yeah.
like you already have like a base, right? So do you find that like you catch on a little bit quicker, or you're like, oh, this is why this works?
There's aspects that I'm much more experienced and versed in, especially any time that we're on the feet. It's unless the other person has either a wrestling background or judo background, my experience is much higher. So on the feet, leagues above, because that's all that I've done
Okay.
is, takedowns, throws, and trips. On the ground, I have I had a decent base, but this is the mind frame that I went in with is I'm going to do jujitsu and I'm going to do it in the circle of jujitsu, of the rule set of jujitsu and the positions of jujitsu. And I want to learn how to do jujitsu, you know, um, because, from judo and wrestling, you know, we do a lot of pins.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was used to getting into position and holding people down in pins. But as far as doing submissions, I was not very well versed, and I wanted to get better at the submission aspect. That's kind of the reason I wanted to do jujitsu is to get better at the submission aspects. Because right, wrong, or indifferent, as I was coming through the system in judo, we barely practice any submissions ever. It's like when we did, it was every once in a while, and it was most of the time not really broken down into small steps and incrementally trying to get better. It was just, here's a submission, here's how you do it. Okay, let's move on. And so I really never learned very well how to do submissions, and I found out pretty quickly too in jujitsu where people are consistently practicing how to stop being armbarred and stop being choked and things like that, that what I was doing wasn't very effective. I was barely submitting people. And again, like I wanted to get better. So I would, work in guard, and I would play guard, and I would, try to do jujitsu, because I tell people this all the time, from both folk style wrestling, especially, and judo, like literally, like I can just get up anytime I want to, not, not to sound, pompous or to brag or anything. It's just, a sport like folk style wrestling. One of the main aspects is get up and get away from somebody that's trying to hold you down. So it's like, it's just something, again, that's just been embedded in me. So a sport like jiu-jitsu, they might focus on once people get to the ground, most of the time people will just stay there and work the submissions. Most of the time people are not just going to try to get up and get away. So it's not a point in emphasis in jiu-jitsu to teach that. So anytime that I want to get up, I can just get up. I mean, obviously if like a 300-pound guy is sitting on me, obviously I can't get up. But if we're just playing jiu-jitsu and it's against somebody, of that lower rank or whatever. I mean, sometimes it depends on the black belt too. Like some of them just do not practice takedowns, so the skill
Okay.
level isn't there. You know, um, it's just when you aren't exposed to it. Just like me, I wasn't exposed to a lot of submissions, therefore I'm not good at submissions. But I'm good at takedowns and throws, or at least better than the average person, I guess. That's what my background is.
Yeah.
So I try to just be enveloped and be part of the system of jiu-jitsu and the positions of jiu-jitsu and the sport aspect of it and the rules. I try to adapt to it. And it's good because at first, when I was getting submitted all the time and never submitting anybody, I slowly started to understand and, catch up. Um, did I catch up faster than maybe somebody that's never done any grappling? Yeah, probably because of my background in judo and wrestling. But, there's a lot that I still have to improve on, but, it's nice because I have seen my progression through it. And now that I've, been involved in jiu-jitsu for a while, I've started to figure out how to blend the judo and the wrestling in my jujitsu a little bit better, to where it still falls within that umbrella of the rule set for jujitsu, but I sometimes rely on some of the wrestling for some of the positional things, or um, I focus on some of the aspects that judo has taught me, as far as maybe controlling somebody on the ground or controlling sleeves or whatever it might be. But it's cool, and it's interesting too when you're a black belt in something and you start off as a white belt in something else, just how humbling it can be, and there's people out there that might be a black belt in something and they don't want to go somewhere and put on a white belt, because they don't want to start over.
Yeah.
But I kind of did, and I'm glad that I did, and I've progressed, and I'm happy with how things have went. But I mean, I'm like leagues from getting anywhere decent in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I'm nowhere even close to where I'd like to be, so it's just time and commitment, just like anything else, and being in uncomfortable situations, and just learning how to sometimes survive in those uncomfortable situations. It's what
Yeah.
martial arts teaches,
Yeah.
you know.
Got to do the hard stuff.
Mhm.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How and in doing the podcast and speaking with different people, learning from other practitioners, have you have you found that it has helped improve some of your skill sets? And if so,
Oh, especially,
how?
absolutely, especially with some of the mindset type stuff. And I've had, conversations with quite a few people about this. When you're younger and you're going through the system, whatever martial arts system it might be, you don't really realize some of the things that you're learning about, yourself, and about discipline, and about respect, and overcoming adversity and things like that. You just kind of just go through the motions, and you really don't think about it. Honestly, you just kind of just put your head, well, at least I did, I just put my head down and worked,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because like it becomes a full circle, and you look back and you realized how much that training has molded you as a person, and molded you as far as your work ethic and your tenacity, and things like that. And it's just been awesome to hear perspectives from experienced people, hear their journey, and hear stories of how they overcame adversity. And like when passionate people start talking about things that they enjoy, like you could just hear it in their voice, and
You see it.
hear their
Yeah.
excitement. Oh yeah. So but one thing, and it might be, it's different in a lot of ways, because like people that are top echelon in grappling, NCAA wrestlers, um, judo Olympians, jiu-jitsu world champions, things like that. It's, even though they're the top athletes, you get this humbleness and this ordinary person type mentality from them. Everybody is just so nice, and everybody is so, I mean, there's obviously some cases where they're not, but 99% of the time they're just awesome, humble people that are just, willing to give you the time of day. And I firmly believe that it's because of like how humbling martial arts, especially the sport based competitive martial art, how humbling you become, because of just people are just like you're coming up through the system, and you're always facing people that are better than you, and you get in these situations to where you're just helpless and you just don't feel like you could do anything,
Yeah.
and it really just takes your ego and just crushes it. So it's like these dudes that are top level, I mean, they're getting their butt kicked for a decade,
At
and
least.
then
Yeah.
through all that through all that adversity and all that, trial by fire, that they go and they do win, those medals or whatever, or sometimes they're given the opportunity to go and they don't medal or whatever it is. But it's interesting because, like, just the martial arts and grappling just teaches you all that stuff, and it's really interesting. I mean, not to knock anybody, but it's like you see some of the superstars and maybe some of the popular sports, and I mean, sometimes they don't like give anybody the time of day, and they get, you see people that are pompous, or you see people that just they just think too highly of themselves, and it shows,
Well,
and it's very rare that you run into somebody like that. That's a wrestler or that's a judo player. It's very, very, very rare that ever happens.
it 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 teaches you how to lose. It teaches you how to deal with,
Oh
just
yeah,
like it can happen, and it happens to everyone, and you got to learn how to deal with those things, and the best way to do that sometimes is to get thrown around, get choked out, get punched. It's a
yep,
we're all human and we all learn, and some of us learn
yeah,
that lesson relatively soon, relatively early. Some of us are still learning that lesson. I
oh yeah,
one of the best things about martial arts for me that I've learned in the last 10 years is just not letting things, not letting others affect my attitude. You
hmm,
know, I always say driving home from the gym is the dojo is the most peaceful experience, because
hmm,
I've already faced more adversity than 90% around me. Just trying not to get hit in the face
yeah,
or choked or thrown. It's
yep,
just like whatever. It's as cool as can be, you know. It's a good time. It's a good time.
yeah, yep.
So we're getting about to be the hour mark here, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your podcast, your social media, your school. Where can you be found? Uh, what what do you got going on there?
Hmm, yeah. So I'm trying to get connected with, I mean, as many people as possible, honestly. Not in the sense, by no means, to become famous or anything. I'm very passionate about teaching, and I'm very passionate about becoming a better teacher. And I've put in a lot of time in understanding what teaching in general is, and what it takes to explain things to where people can understand them. And it's something that I've really invested a lot of time in. And I'm starting to see how people just are really enjoying it. And I think that if I can just keep spreading the knowledge of what I've picked up over time, you know, individuals can pick up something from what I'm doing. And if it helps them along their journey, then I know that done my job. And so I am, got my own school, Student First Martial Arts and Fitness in Monroe, North Carolina. I'm teaching at 4M Fitness and Indian Trail. I've had the podcast Well Rounded Grappler for like 2.5, 3 years. I'm releasing content on YouTube.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Student First Martial Arts.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. First as in the number one, so 1ST, Student First. And I'm usually taking long form stuff, and I just kind of chop it up and put it on TikTok, or put it onto short form content on YouTube, but mostly filming longer stuff. And when I say longer, it could be maybe 5 minutes, or it could be an hour and a half. It just kind of depends on the situation and what we're doing. But I mean, it's, and while I'm doing this, I'm still trying to live my life, and I'm still trying to train, and I'm still trying to get better as an individual. And then I'm spending time with my family, and it's either I'm doing something martial art related, or I'm home with my family, not counting my work day.
Yeah.
But, those are the things that I do. But, I mean, I could put more time into all of it, but I try not to get so embedded in it to where other parts of my life lack. Like I want to spend time with my daughter, and I want to spend time with my family, and I don't want to be in my room editing all day and ignoring them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I could release more stuff if I wanted to, but I'm just trying to release stuff, and just trying to get more people into. So I have basically like 3 main reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. Number one is to get more people into martial arts in general. And I include wrestling in that umbrella as well, and it doesn't have to be grappling. It could be, I tell people to do kickboxing. I tell people to do karate. I tell people to get involved in, traditional martial arts that have forms that don't have any sort of competitive aspect. I tell parents to get their kids into it. I tell older adults to get into it. I tell people that may have wrestled or did martial arts when they were younger, and then now they've taken a break for 2 decades. And I'm like, come back. You'll be happy you did. The second thing that I want to do is get people better on their takedown and throw aspect, whether it's judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, sambo, whatever it is. Like, I just want to get people better. I want to help them and put tools into their toolbox so that they can become a better grappler. And then the third thing that I'm trying to accomplish with all this is to take away a lot of the misconceptions that people have about judo. I've been, telling people to do judo for 25 years, and especially a lot the last couple of years, right? Like, being a teacher now, I'm trying to get people into it. And, one of the main things that I hear of why people don't want to do it is they say, I don't want to be thrown on my head, and unfortunately, because of whatever reason, marketing or just whatever it might be, to where you type in judo into YouTube and you see highlights from the World Championship, and you see highlights from the Olympic Games, and you see these big highlights where these absolute stud top echelon athletes, that are superhuman with their speed and strength, are picking people up and throwing them down hard.
Mm-hmm.
So people see that, and while it's cool to watch, the average person either doesn't think they want to do that because of how they think they might get hurt, or they don't think that they physically can do that, So, one of my missions is, to tell people that judo is for everyone. And it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or 60 years old, you can start judo. And it's taught in a safe way. It's taught as a physical education curriculum, and it's enjoyable. And while obviously with both any kind of martial arts, any kind of grappling, there is going to be some physicality to it, but it's not all what you see on television or on the highlights on YouTube, and jujitsu has done such a good job with marketing jujitsu, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of people know about it, but a lot of people view it as something that's safe and easy to do. You know, the whole mantra of jujitsu is for everyone was directly taken from judo, because Jigoro Kano, when he created judo in 1882, like his main thing that he wanted to promote was how it is for everyone. And judo needs to come back and do that. And when I'm releasing these videos and these instructionals or whatever they might be, I'm showing technique. I am breaking it down into small incremental steps and small bites, and showing people that judo is safe and judo is something that, people that are non-athletic can have success at it. But then if you also want to take judo and add it to your competitive career, it can also do that as well, but like when I talked about earlier how I've been teaching judo the art, I
Mm-hmm.
really have. You know, I haven't been, like I don't push people real hard, like, and this might have came with time and kind of from my mistakes that I learned as being a head wrestling coach too, that like, you can lead a horse to water, but they have to want to take a drink.
Yeah.
It's like so many times I've been blue in the face, like trying to convince like some of my wrestlers, you got to do more. Like, why aren't you committed? Like, why are you missing practice? Like, why aren't you interested in doing anything in the off season? Like, and I'm like chasing these people. And in the meantime, I have a small group of people that are putting in that work with me.
Yeah.
But I was so focused on trying to get all these other people to be part of it that I may have, you know, I was focusing on the wrong group of people, is what I'm trying to say. And, like now that I teach, when I teach judo, whenever anybody comes, I'm just so happy they're there. And I have people that come, sometimes twice a week, and then I have other people that might just come once a month. And I'm just happy they're there, and the hard workers are going to work hard,
Mm-hmm.
and the people that are not hard workers are not going to work hard, and like I could present stuff to them, and the ones that want to improve and the ones that, are put their head down and work hard are just those kind of people, I mean, I you try to give a good example to people, but really, man, they have to make the decision on their own, especially with working with adults too. It's like adults are going to be how they are, and it's like the people that come and we're doing an exercise, or a takedown or whatever, like, you see the people that are doing, a ton of reps, and you see the people that aren't. And it's not like one of them is right and one of them is wrong, but it's like, everybody is also going to go through their journey in martial arts and fitness a different way. Like some people are workhorses and some people are there just for the socialization aspect,
Yeah.
and I can't be focused on making everybody work themselves to death, you know, and that's kind of, again, maybe a mistake I made as a wrestling coach, man. Like we were definitely in top cardio shape, I can tell you that. Like my team was in great shape, but we were also beat up, you know, also beat up all the time. And some of the kids just weren't enjoying it because I just worked them to death, you know? So it's like, again, I mean, maybe it's a mistake I made as a coach. Maybe it's, you know, it's like,
There's a fine
I
line
figured
there.
out too, there's a fine line. And I also figured out that nobody is going to be as passionate about this as I am. You know, none of these wrestlers are going to like wrestling as much as I do. They just aren't, you know, and that's okay. But it took me a long time to understand and accept something like that, you know, because I was just such a freaking hard worker and I had to work for everything that I've ever had. And I was not an athlete. And so I had to work twice as hard as the athletes to try to learn because, you know, I
It didn't
wasn't
come
blessed with
naturally.
the, no,
Yeah.
no. So again, it's like it's just something that I've had to just accept and change over time. And but man, I as far as being in a better like mindset and enjoying it, man, I enjoy what I'm doing so much more because I am focused on the people that are there, and I am focused on the ones that are happy to be there and the ones that have questions, and you know, the people that are smiling and stuff. Like that's the stuff that I focus on now, you
Yeah.
know. And you know, when I go and I spread the message of grappling and martial arts to people, and I go to these clubs and I teach, you know, and I counted up about a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago how many clubs I visited last year, 2025. I visited 35 clubs and I taught at all 35 clubs.
Wow.
And that's cool, man. Yeah, it's
That's
cool.
awesome.
And it's like you're talking about a guy that is a no-name person. I don't have any accolades, you know, but I have a passion, I can tell you that. And I am a, an educator by both profession and by, you know, like the time that I've put in. And it's nice that people allow me to come and teach. And to be honest, I mean, I really haven't had any negative experiences from it. You know, like people have said a lot of good things. You know, and it's just nice to hear that stuff. You
Yeah.
know, because I mean, I dedicate a lot of time to this, and I really try to do the best job that I can when I teach. You know, I mean, obviously, some days I'm not as into it as I probably should be, but man, I really try to give my all to my students and whoever is there to learn. I really try to give my all, and it's just been such a good experience for me. And I just want to continue to do this. And you know, I hope I stay in this sort of mindset and not go back to maybe old habits. And yeah, things are going good, but that's kind of what I do. You know, and I want people that decide to either watch some videos that I've made or listen to a podcast, whatever. You know, I'm not interested in 1,000 people that watch it and just don't do anything with it, or watch the first 30 seconds. Like that small group of individuals that's going to take that video and watch all 20 minutes of it and pause it and reverse it, pause and reverse it, pause and reverse it, and study the technique and actually want to learn something out of it. Like that's the people that I'm doing this for. So while you know, again, maybe the numbers of people aren't there, but you know, when I come to the judo club and one of my students is like, man, I just watched your latest technique video, you know, can you tell me a little bit more about that? It's like, oh, sweet,
You're
you
doing
watched
something
it,
right.
good,
Yeah.
that's cool, man. Yeah, yeah, let's talk about this. Or hey man, I listened to that podcast with such and such, and that was a good podcast. And that I'm like, oh, you listened to it? That's cool, man. You know, and it's like I just want people to get stuff out of it. Like, you know, you have social media, you have, well, usually it's like they talk about it's either entertainment, it's education, or it's edutainment, right? Like what I'm doing is definitely educational. Like I want to teach. I want people to learn. I want people to expand. I want people to grow as individuals. And again, like if people watch this stuff and they decide that they either want to start martial arts, they want to get back into martial arts because it's been a long time, or there may be an individual that has maybe practiced something like jiu-jitsu, but because they watched some of my videos and said, you know what, I might want to try that judo thing because my takedowns really need more work. So I'm going to go and try it. It's like if I can get that sort of thing, then I know that I'm doing what I'm trying to do. That's like my main goal, right?
Yeah.
Get more people into martial arts. And again, including wrestling, because wrestling is a martial art. Improve the takedowns of people that are already in martial arts and take away some of the misconceptions people have of judo. So that's what I do.
Right on. Right on. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thanks for taking time. Really appreciate it. I got a little spiel I'm going to give, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, man.
Right on. Friends.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Hey, friends, thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out on any of our social medias. We have TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. All can be found at The Formless Pod. We have a website called theformlesspod.com where you can get hats, shirts, book bags, all sorts of fun stuff. Until next time, thank you.